This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast. Episode 69 is on deck tonight. Excited to have all you folks watching along with us here as we get ready to go. We've got Joe Boniferro joining us to talk a little bit about the conclusion, the exciting conclusion of the 2019 TNT Super Series season. They wrapped up over at the Empire Dragway over the weekend, so their season has concluded. We'll be catching up with him. Jason joining us here in the studio. You were there? You got to participate?
Well, no. Oh, God, no.
Well, you said you were talking to Pete in the
Well, I was talking to Pete
pit line.
Maduri in the driveway Friday night, so we went testing Friday night, and the plan was if testing went well Friday night, then we were going to compete on Saturday. Don't know about Sunday, but we packed up and left on Friday night, so I guess that'll tell you all you need to know about how great testing went.
Learned everything you needed to know.
To be perfectly honest, it was probably the best test session that we've had in a while. So
did you get that pull out of it?
So yes and no.
Oh boy.
So the short story is we changed the rear slicks from our new Hoosiers, which we've had on for basically the beginning of the season, and switched over to a set of 7-year-old Goodyears that have been sitting in Phil's garage, winter, summer, year round, and put them on the car, and the car went nice and straight. So we think that, it could be a wheel still, but we believe that it's probably a bad slick. So now it took us all year to figure that out, but so
you were having trouble longer than that.
This whole thing has been going on for years at this point. But every time we thought we found it basically was just something else. So it was a cracker end housing. It was a bad front strut. Now it looks like it's a bad slick. So it's just been ongoing and really testing my patience, I guess. Like I said, overall we didn't compete on Saturday because the only set of tires that we had really to get down the track was a set of 7-year-old slicks, and it was like, well, we're not going to do that. But we did leave the test session Friday night actually kind of enthused, thinking to ourselves, I think we got the problem at least identified.
The year of Oldfield.
I'll take the year of going straight, being able to let go of the button. It's funny because on the last pass that I made, I have the GoPro in the car. You can see me instinctively let go of the button and jerk the wheel to the left. And I'm like, oh, it went straight. I don't have to. So, just being able to go straight would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's going on as long as it has. You really start. I've questioned myself on multiple occasions. Is it me? Maybe you got to put somebody else in the seat, and maybe they can make the car go straight. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad that you got somewhere with that. That's good to hear.
So, I'm disappointed that we didn't get a chance. I always love running in the TNT. I have a lot of fun racing in that series and racing with those guys. I'll say even that Phil's car is probably better suited to the 1090 races, and that bums me out too because they actually ran the last 2 races quarter mile rather than eighth mile.
Yeah.
And I love quarter mile racing, so I was really hoping that everything was going to work out perfectly. But it's a great series, and I just have fun doing it because I can go out and just run. I just go out and race, and it's fun to do. And they put on a good show. I'm disappointed I missed it.
Well, the season concluded.
Yes, it did.
That race. That's the final chapter of 2019, barring the final accolades that will be handed out at the year-end banquet awards event, such alike. So Joe's joining us on the line. Joe, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thanks for having us, guys.
Definitely. Looked like you had 10 racers that followed almost the entire series. They had 10 events to their credit in attendance. Pete Maduri and Pete Maduri Sr. won the championship overall. Looked like it was a good close points race. How good was the action on the final weekend?
Well, it was first of all, if you look at our whole season, I think we had a total of 36 or 38 racers throughout the year compete at different times. But the season end finale, you know what? It's in our deal, in our TNT Super Series. It's never a dull moment. Going into the weekend, I'm looking at the points, and it's like, holy smokes! Anybody in the top 6 could win the championship. Sunday morning, once Saturday was over, Saturday was a successful day. Ted, he's on top of the points constantly. He's on the laptop, and he's calculating, and he's putting everybody's qualifying points in and round points. And Sunday morning, I'm in the lanes as the guys are getting paired, and I've got the point structure on my phone, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking to see who's paired with who. And it's, man, going in Sunday morning, anybody in the top 4 could have won.
Wow.
It's exciting.
I was saying, now, last year, so Patrick, your son, won it last year driving Kevin Orr's car. Now, last year, he was, I want to call way out of it. I think he was in the top 10 still, but was he like 8th or 9th or something like that going into the final weekend?
Yeah, going into the last weekend, well, I'm going to lay this out for you. Going into the last weekend last year, we had 3 races. We had Lancaster Friday night,
right? Yeah,
and then we had the double header at Leicester on the weekend.
Yep.
So Pat was, if I recall, 99 points out of first.
And to put that into perspective, so I mean, this year's champion finished with 700-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look at it this way. Pat, he went to Lancaster Friday night and won. Went to Leicester Saturday and won. Sunday, he runnered up to Pete Jr. in the final, and he accumulated 100 points to take the championship. Okay,
They won it by 1.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now this weekend, Pat was 8th going into the weekend.
Yep.
Went to the final on Saturday and runnered up to young Tyler Haleen.
Yep.
And he accumulated 55 points between his qualifying and his rounds on Saturday.
Yeah.
And he was still in 8th place.
Oh.
You didn't move up.
Yeah. But,
Well, I would say I'm sure when he was going to the final on Saturday, I'm sure there had to be some guys sitting there thinking to themselves, "Oh my God, here we go again!" Right?
yeah.
I know. I talked to Kevin Orr in the driveway on Friday night, and he had mentioned that that Patrick was, let's call it, still in it, and he's like, he goes, I realize that he doesn't have a really great shot of winning the championship, but at the same point in time, he was further out last year than he was this year. So he goes, what are you going to do? You're going to let the kid drive and see what happens, right?
Yeah, for sure. But we, like you watch our deal. Our deal is our guys, and I'm not saying this because I'm involved in the series, but I feel in our 1090 deal, we've got some of, if not the best, 1090 racers in the country. Anybody can win on any given weekend. Nobody ran away with it. Like Pete Sr. won a race. Pete Jr. won a race.
Yep.
Young Tyler Haleen won a race.
Yep.
We even let Ted Barnes win one this year.
I was going to say, I thought Ted won a race at Lancaster earlier this year, didn't he?
Yeah. My son Ryan, he won a race. Pat, he runnered up on the weekend. It's like the young Bob Bauer III. He won. There's an up and coming lion right there.
Sure.
Him and Tyler, and it's just so awesome to see some young guys getting into it. We had a new fella with a Mustang came this weekend, got a throttle stop on and tried it, and he's hooked. He says he's going to run the series next year. He just enjoyed it. So
that's some good news.
Yeah, that is good news, and I have to agree, Joe. I mean, I really love seeing the younger guys do it, and that's one thing I will say with Supergas that we're kind of missing. I mean, that we don't have a lot of those really young kids. I mean, I'll call them young kids. I mean, kids in their, from 18 to 30, right? We don't have a lot of competitors in Supergas in the 18 to 30 bracket. So that's certainly good to see. I mean, I really do like that. And I will say, I mean, I'll back you up with regards to, having some of the best racers in the country. I remember Saturday, was it Saturday? Saturday or Sunday, I saw the qualifying sheet for Saturday. And I think Doug Linden said he went 1090 with a 6 to be number 6 qualifier.
Whoa.
Sunday was tougher than Saturday, I believe, if I recall. I'm thinking we had 7 or 8. The first 7 or 8 guys qualified with a 1090 something.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Like my son Ryan, he qualified with 90.05, and I think that put him fourth.
Yeah, that's
so. Yeah, there's nobody's taking any prisoners in this deal. They're all good.
Oh, yeah.
They're all good.
Yeah, and I will say it's hard 8th mile. I mean, it's obviously hard quarter mile. It's really hard 8th mile. I know I've told this story on the show before. I remember being at Lancaster once when they were running 8th mile. Guys were running 8th mile there, and I went 7,001. And when I pulled up, they told me I didn't have the buy run. I'm like, that's impossible. I was 7,001. And Ted came up, and Ted had the buy run because he was 7,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's just really, really close racing. And but I mean, then, like I said, you take it to the quarter mile, it makes it more difficult to get close like that. And to have that many guys that close really is a testament to how good everybody is and how well everybody's dialed.
Yeah, and there was on Sunday, like I say, when I was looking at the cars paired, and it's like my son had Pete Jr., and if Pat could have taken out Pete Jr., and then young Tyler, he had Teddy, so that would have moved my other son Pat up, and it was like I'm looking at it, and like I say, Bobby Bauer III, he could have made a move, but he had a tough competitor first round, and it was just it was like, holy smokes, it was exciting.
Yeah,
it was between out of the whole season, and I'm not saying this because the season's over and there's less work now, but it's just when it gets into the championship weekend like that, and you don't have one guy that's got 8 rounds on somebody,
right?
And you it could go either way, and you're watching the guys, and you got some new guys that came out, and our car count wasn't bad. We had 22 cars, so it was a great weekend.
Yeah, being at the end of the season, honestly, having 22 cars is a good number of cars, particularly considering the fact that the same weekend you had the Great Lakes Pro Tree Association running out at Dragway 42. You had Maple Grove going on, so you lost guys there, and you get to the end of the season. Look, guys are broke, and they're broken, and some are just broke out of money. So. To still have,
as you will.
Yeah, right. To still have 22 cars at the end of the season at the finale is really quite impressive. The other thing too, I would say the other thing too that I find somewhat funny is going into the weekend's events. So I don't know why you guys decided to make the announcement you were going to run quarter mile, but there was obviously a lot of backlash about it prior to the weekend, right? And
well, yeah. Well, the thing is, Jason, this is what I try to do, being the race director.
Yeah.
I'm kind of old school and set my ways, and I'm going to make my decisions no matter what people try and tell me. But the thing is, it's not etched in stone that we're quarter mile series.
Right.
What I always try to do is, if we're at a track and that track is running an 8 mile deal, and we allow our guys to double enter.
Yep.
So if the track's 8 mile, I try and run our deal 8 mile.
Okay.
All season I got to hear guys, well, how come we're not quarter mile? How come we're this? How come, I thought this was a quarter mile deal. And my buddy Chris Van Balen, he loves the quarter mile. and I love that kid. You know what? He's a pain in the ass, but he keeps everybody on their toes, that's for sure.
Oh, sure.
So anyways, I figure, okay, we're going to Leicester. This is supposed to be a fairly big race for Jerry. And
sure.
Jerry and Claire, they've always treated us fantastic. For years, I always try ending our deal before Labor Day, and then last year they started this middle of September race. So obviously we try and support it, right?
Sure.
But I know the Freddie Smith's the Can-Am stock super stock were there,
right?
And they always run quarter mile.
Yep.
So I figure, you know what? I'm not going to be messing up the program too bad. We ran after them.
Yep.
And it was a quarter mile, and I don't want any of my guys getting hurt. I would feel terrible, and I'm up on the starting line every time my guys run, and I watched every car, and everybody was nice and clean at the top end. I didn't see anybody make any silly moves, and I walked the track prior to us running, and there's not a lot of rubber up top, but the track's not as bad as people say it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the track is terrible. I will say the left lane in the shutdown is worse than the right. If you happen to get your tires caught in the groove of that crack in the top end, I mean, yeah, it moves the car around a little bit, but I mean, it's not to the point where I wouldn't run it. I mean, I feel perfectly comfortable, running there, particularly. It'd be different if it was a really short shutdown as well. But with such a long shutdown, it's just, and the track is wide. So, I mean, it's not like, oh my God, I barely got any room to move from left to right. So it really is, my personal opinion, it's okay. The thing that I find funny is the fact, again, it really created quite a bit of controversy going into the weekend. And maybe I'm wrong because I wasn't there, but I didn't hear anything with regard to that really factoring into the outcome of the races at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. But you know what? It's there's a couple ways of looking at it. Like when you're at Lancaster, the shutdown is short.
Sure.
You're racing at night. When it's 8th mile, I think it's real exciting. It's action-packed. You're side by side. It's hard to make those decisions going through the traps because the 8th mile comes up so soon.
Yeah.
With the quarter mile, I think it gives guys a little more time to execute their plan, right?
Yeah. Or in my case, make a mistake.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you put tires on the car and it was going straight, you should have stayed and raced with us on Saturday.
I thought about it. Honestly, if those Goodyears had been a little bit newer, I probably would have. It's crazy too because those tires. I think the 60-foot and those tires, we were getting one. Now, granted, the car's been going violently to the right, but with the Hoosiers on the car was getting like 141 60-footers. I put the Goodyears on, and it went 135 in the very first pass, and the second pass it was 131. It's like that. Even 7 years old, there. Sitting outside and freezing every winter, it's like those tires. That car still loved those tires.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely disappointed that I missed it, like I said, because I like yourself, Joe, I'm an old school guy, and I really like the quarter mile stuff. With the Western Super Yacht Association, we've kind of switched primarily to 8th mile because that's what most guys want to run. So it's like, okay, I mean, it were up to me and you gave me the course that I could run half mile, I'd run half mile. But I'm in the minority. Most of the guys like the 8th mile stuff. But like I said, I just found it funny that overall that the quarter mile course, like I said, really didn't factor in overall to what the overall outcome was. So just ended up being a good weekend of racing.
Yeah, it sure was. And we had even Sam Levitro Automotive sponsored our weekend. And Sam was out running with us, which was awesome because he doesn't get out that often. And you know what? We've got a ton of good sponsors for every weekend. Like I say, there's Sam Levitro, and then the LaHaye sponsored a race, and Kevin and his wife, the Orrs, and Larry and Steve. They call themselves the Friends of the TNT, and it just helps put a nice deal together for us.
Yeah, I mean, your series really has a lot of long-time sponsors, including yourself. I mean, Joe's Transmission's been the title sponsor for TNT for a long time, as long as I can remember.
Since 13 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I was going to actually ask you, obviously you and Ted are both Canadian, but how did you and Ted really get hooked up to begin with?
Well, holy smokes, that's like a loaded question. I don't know how I got stuck with Teddy, but we used to, I give Ted a hard time all the time. I ask him, I go, dude, how could you have made a mistake like that? You've been racing the same car since 1985.
Right.
But anyways, that's pretty well how we met. Years back when we used to race at John Fletcher's track at Cayuga.
Yeah.
We did the bracket deal together in the mid-'80s, went to some bracket finals together.
Okay.
Kind of, stayed in touch over the years, and when he come up with this, I guess he was probably looking for a pigeon or an easy target. So when he come up with this idea, he approached me and sucked me in.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, overall, like I said, it's just been, I guess we'll call it a match made in heaven. I mean, you really, you guys have just been together. Now, you've been race director now for maybe 5 years, I'll say. Has it been longer than that?
Yeah, probably a little longer. I started out as, even though, even though I was title sponsor,
right,
kind of behind the scenes,
right.
Teddy would always bounce some stuff off of me, and you think we should do this, you think we should do that.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point, well, I don't have to tell you, you can visualize this. You know what it's like when you're racing your series and you want to get in your car and race.
Yep.
It's competitive, have fun, and then you got guys with concerns. This happened, I want to rerun.
Right.
This isn't right. Why are we doing that? Well, once I took over the position of director of competition,
yep,
and I'm at all the races, all of a sudden nobody bothers Teddy and nobody says anything to me.
Right. Well,
so it worked out good.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy racing your series so much, is because of the fact that when I go out to the track, I'm just a racer, right?
Yeah.
I'm just out there to have fun and do my thing, and I don't have to worry about the ladder and pairings and qualifying and all the rest of that stuff that goes along with it. All I do is go out and do my own thing. And, is it terribly hard? I mean, is it, when I'm out there, does it add, so much work that I can barely manage? No, not necessarily, but it takes your mind off of, in between trying to work on dialing the car and making sure everything's okay, now you're thinking about other things rather than just really concentrating on your own racing program. So from that standpoint, like I said, it does add a level of difficulty overall, because it's just one more thing that you have to do that weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to have Joe Boniferro come race or run the Western New York Super Rod Association for me.
all your guys would quit. But anyway, like, we also, we're pretty thankful because we do have, besides myself and Ted, like, we've got Charlene runs the trailer.
Right. Yep.
She goes up to the tower, gets the ladder, does the pairing. There's a couple times when Charlene's series races at Cuga. Then my future daughter-in-law, Pat's girl, she ran the trailer a couple races,
yep.
And then even Kevin Orr's wife, Lori, she's helped out. So we're pretty fortunate that way, for sure.
Yeah, and I have to say that I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out from my own perspective to some of the people that have helped us. Michelle Gioli has come out to the track, made trips out to the track specifically just to help us. Doug Linden's wife Pam has helped us on many occasions. Beth Gregory, Vince Gregory's wife, has helped us, and that's one of the nice things about doing it is that the racers they do see that there's work involved in doing this, and they're willing to try and pitch in and help out too where possible. Of course, then you always have the Chris Van Balen troublemakers of the world too, right?
We had him on the show.
And I'm just picking on Chris. We've had Chris on the show, so yeah, we're just picking on Chris. Chris is a good guy. I like Chris. I have a lot of fun with him out at the track. And was Chris out there this weekend?
Yeah, Chris was out running with us.
Okay, yeah, I know he normally does.
Yeah, I believe, don't hold me to this because, I'm getting old and my memory's not that great, but I think Chris qualified number 1 on Sunday, if I recall.
Oh, okay.
He did.
Yeah, Chris is shaking his head. He did.
Yeah, and you know what? Chris is just a character, eh? And, some people love him and some people don't. And it's like, dude, if he took all that energy he has that he uses into causing trouble and applied it to his racing program, I'm telling you, Chris is a good drag racer.
Oh, he's a very good drag racer for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, if he took all that energy that he uses driving around on a scooter, causing havoc, and applied it to his racing, he could be unbeatable, that kid.
He's a lot of fun out at the track for sure. Like I said, it's, I don't know why in the end, the thing with Chris is it's all in good fun. That's, he's not trying to be mean or malicious. He's just out there having a good time,
Yeah, he's just being Chris.
For us old people that remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the movie, he is Chris Spicoli, right? He's a good guy. Like I said, good guy, good character. So overall, you guys had, was it 10 races that we had total?
Oh, now you're gonna make me think. Yeah, I'm the guy that made up the schedule. This is what we had. We had 6 weekends, I believe.
Okay.
So what I did was I spread it all out, so we had kind of like one a month. They were all double headers, and then so it was 13 races because we had the Race of Champions at Hugo on the Friday night, I believe, which my friend Casey Jansen from Revs Full Throttle has been. You know what? This is the 6th year in a row he sponsored that for us, and it's I can't have that race without a sponsor. So
right, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that again is just one more long-time sponsor that you guys have had. And I have to say that Full Throttle has sponsored that race for as long as I can remember. It's always been the Full Throttle Race of Champions. So it's great to have that kind of support. Now, overall, you guys were at Grand Bend this year, right?
Yeah.
That was the same weekend, I think, as, was it an IHRA race that they had there?
They had, Grand Bend had 2 or 3 big races, right?
Yeah.
One was the Mopar, their Mopar race, so it wasn't, and then they had their Stratford deal, and then they had the one, that other series, that other heads-up series.
The Great Lakes Pro Tree Association one?
The Great Lakes, they had a double header at that event. Actually, my son Pat, he won that deal.
Oh,
the one, I forget if it was I believe it was the Sunday he won there, and So you know what? I love going to Grand Bend. I really like different avenues. The only problem is with logistics and everything else. See, I raced for 35 years, and I would go anywhere to race. I raced in Bristol, Virginia, obviously Norwalk. Norwalk's not as far, but I have no problem traveling, going to a race, and I find a lot of people in our area, or especially Western New York, they just like the Lancaster, the Friday night deal.
Right.
If I asked everybody, let's put on a big race 4 hours away, I don't think I would get the car count.
Yeah. I don't remember who it was, but I actually talked to one of the Ohio guys who came to our race at Dragway 42 last year, and was it last year or 2 years ago? Well, let's say it was last year. Regardless, talked to him, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, you going to go up to the race at Grand Bend? He's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, the border and all the rest. I'm like, well, what's wrong with the border? He's like, oh, geez, it's just so hard to get across. And I'm like, it's like a piece of cake. I'm like, yeah, I've heard horror stories, but everybody seems to think that the horror story is the norm, right? You're going to go there and you're going to get hassled. It's going to take you 2 hours to get across. If you're lucky, more than likely you're going to get turned back. And it's like, it's not like that at all. It's like if you show up and you're honest, they're going to ask to look in the trailer. Okay, so you open the door in the trailer, they look in, make sure you're not smuggling any drugs or illegal aliens in, and away you go. I mean, 2 minutes and you're done. So I don't really understand why people have this notion, I guess, overall that crossing the border is a really big deal, because it's not.
No, well, when I used to do all my racing, all the IHRA stuff and that, I kept everything in an envelope in the console of the truck. I had the ownership for the truck, ownership for the trailer, and then they call it a Y38. It's a green card, which had the serial number and what the race car is and the golf cart. I got that at the border. You only have to stop and get it once. It's good for life as long as it's legible. I keep all that stuff together. Every time I would cross the border, if they asked me for my paperwork, I would automatically hand it to them.
Right.
And as soon as they realized I had everything I needed, they didn't even look at it. They just handed it back to me.
Right. Yeah. If you go to the trouble to be that prepared, obviously this guy's got his ducks in a row.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Yeah, and I will say that I love Grand Bend too. I mean, it's been a while since I've been there, and again, Phil and I were planning on going to that race too. If unfortunately, again, with the car not going straight, we just had to punt and couldn't go. But yeah, surprisingly, Phil has never been to Grand Bend, so I mean that was really high on our list of races to go to, because I found it to be a fun track to go and hang out at, and I know that I've never partaken in the beaches myself, but I guess the beach is a really great place. I mean, I just hear so many people just love that area in general, and it's like if they're going to Grand Bend to race, they love going up there a couple days early just to hang out and enjoy the atmosphere of the area.
Oh yeah, it's like going on vacation.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it, like I said, because I haven't done it myself, but I've heard stories about how nice it is up there. Like I said, just on the shore. Now, are you at this point? I mean, obviously, we've just finished the 2019 racing season. Have you started thinking about 2020 already?
Well, it's funny you say that, because every year Ted and I sit down and it's like, are we doing this again? Are we doing this again? Yeah. Well, it's like when we were at Cayuga. I'm used to having 22, 24, 28 cars.
Right.
You're putting on a race. It doesn't matter what the car count is. Our payout is guaranteed. If we have 10 cars, it's $1,000 to win.
Right.
Okay? There's, at Cayuga was very disappointing. I think we had 12, 13 cars.
Yep.
And besides the NHRA stuff, where else can you go run 1090?
Oh yeah, I mean,
and I thought to myself, like 2-3 years ago, I put on those $5,000ers at Leicester.
Yep.
Guaranteed 5,000. If you added up my whole payout, I think it was like $9,600, and I guaranteed the money.
Right.
I didn't depend on the money at the trailer when the guys bought their tech cards. I brought the money with me because if we didn't get the card count, and God, I think the first year I put it on, we had 78.
Yeah, I remember.
Cars.
I remember.
The second year we had 72.
Yeah.
Now, all those cars can't be gone. They can't all be bracket cars now. I just, guaranteeing $1,000 to win. I was hoping that our car count would be a little better than it is.
Well, if you figure it out, I guess I would love to know what the answer is, because we've seen the same thing in Super Gas. Probably no big surprise to you.
Yeah.
Now, granted, one weekend we actually canceled our race basically because of lack of participation. Now, part of that was even my own fault because we had a car that we couldn't get down the track. So in the end, we had 4 cars show up. I'm like, well, guys, it doesn't make sense to have a race with 4 cars. But even if I had made it, it would have only been 5. And yeah, we have seen our car count over the 5 or 6 years, 6 years, I think, that I've run the Western New York Super Rod Association, dwindle from your typical car count of 16, 18 to now, I would say in a typical, really this year typical day was 6 to 8. And I don't know what has happened to all of them. I don't know if everyone has just said, well, I don't want to do .90 type style racing anymore. I'm just going to go be a bracket racer. I don't know if it's just bad luck. I don't know, but I have to say, from my standpoint, it was never important to me. Yes, I want to win, right? But it was never important to me to be the one standing in the winner's circle when putting on one of these races. What I want is to put on one of these races and have 1 million cars show up and everyone to be like, oh my God, that was the best time I've had. I can't wait to come to the next race. And when you put the work in and you have 6 cars show up, or even 10 cars, you're like, man, why am I doing this? It's really, like I said, it's demoralizing overall to do it. And now maybe that's my own personal problem, just because of the fact it's like, well, maybe that should motivate me maybe to try harder. I don't know.
It's marketing and promotion.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Maybe nobody likes you and they don't want to run your deal.
I'm sure there's people out there.
Well, no, that's probably not true, because most people don't like me either, but they still come out. So. But the thing is, back to this car count deal. When we had 12 at Cayuga, I said to Teddy, I says, listen, I says, if we go to Leicester, I says, we got 12 cars. I says, we're done. I says, I can't do all this work and not have the guys support it.
Right.
But then we go to Leicester, we get 20, 22 cars.
Yep.
You get there's some new guys there. Like I said, the young fellow with the Mustang that's trying it.
Yeah.
I had Charlene Lapp is running with us. I had like a old Camaro in my stables that her husband Alex, him and I screwed the car together. He put a stop on it. She went to the final at Cayuga.
Yeah.
We get that tight battle in the points. It pumps me up. It makes me excited about the series. You know?
Right.
Is 1,000 to win a big deal anymore?
Well, that's a problem, I will say. But
go
ahead.
Something like this. What were you making in '95?
For a local series, you weren't getting 1,000. In 1995, if you went someplace that had a bracket race of $1,000 to win, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, I think years ago, like when Lancaster used to run Super Gas on a regular basis, I think it was only $300 to win.
$300. Yep, 100%. $300 to win.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what I have.
But when Lancaster was running Super Gas, you were going to be going to Lancaster anyway. Now you're asking people to tour and cover significant mileage and invest a lot of time. So is there a disconnect between? I mean, your purse has got to be something like, if you're paying $1,000 to win, you're $1,700 for a purse, somewhere around there. After you figure what you pay back.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends upon the car count.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, let's talk for us, for Western York Super Auto Association.
Well, for you guys, it's a lot different than that.
So we typically, I mean, we did the same thing, guaranteed $1,000 to win. So typically, we're very top heavy. So it's been, 1,000 to win, 300 for second, 100 for third and fourth, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, $1,500, paying back 4 spots. You start getting into TNT where, so Joe, you'll have to hop in here. I mean, you guys were paying.
I think like on Sunday. No, we pay roughly $2,000 a weekend per race.
Yeah, and I mean, and you guys are paying round money, right?
Yeah, and our entry fee is only half of what yours is,
right?
Because we're lucky enough to get sponsors to help us out, eh?
Right. Well, it's the sponsors, and with the dwindling car count that we've seen, I mean, the guys in my series have said, well, I don't want to come out and run for $500. I still want to run for minimum $1,000. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, I've basically taken a step back and said, look, I don't want to go out and have to try to chase sponsors and, not only chase, let's call it chase sponsors. I don't want to have to try to procure sponsors. I don't want to have to chase sponsors for money. And I don't want to have to spend all of my time basically then trying to make sponsors happy by getting them the exposure that they've paid for, right? So for me, it was, I'm either going to stop doing the series, or if I'm going to continue to do it, this is the way it's going to be done. And everyone basically said, no, please don't stop doing it. Okay, well, then this is the way it's going to be done. And everybody said, well, we still want to race for big money. It's like, okay, well, with no sponsorship money, that means you have to be self-funded. So if you want to do that, it's going to be $200 basically to enter, and then we'll still guarantee $1,000 to win. Okay, great. And generally what I've seen is that, I have to say, and maybe I wrecked it. Maybe it's my fault, because when we started off, yes, doing sponsors was $100 to enter, essentially, sure. And we raced quarter mile. Now we're racing primarily eighth mile, no sponsors, $200 to win to keep that purse out, and nobody is showing up. But again, the switch from quarter mile to eighth mile, yeah, that was precipitated a little bit by Jerry, but also the majority of the competitors were like, yeah, we want to race eighth mile. Okay, so I'll appease the racers and make it eighth mile. And we want it to be $200 to enter so we can race for big money. Okay, we had a couple of races where we paid $1,800, $2,000 to the winner. Right. But even so, that has not been enough to get, I guess we'll call it retain people, consistent, right? Attraction. Yeah, to get that consistent attraction. So it's like, what's the answer? I don't know. And I honestly don't believe that if you up the purse from $1,000 to $2,000, I still don't think that's enough to really entice somebody to come to your race to compete.
When you say up the purse,
yep.
What do you mean by up the purse specifically? Because that means, to me, you're adding money into the purse, not putting it on top. If you make it $2,000 to win, you're going to be in the same spot you're in, because one person walked away with money. But if you take another $2,000 and inject it from second on back and bolster that, now you're looking at you're cutting into what your entry fee is, and you're working backwards. And $1,000 injected into the back, second through fifth, second through eighth, whatever you want to look at it. That's a change.
I'm really interested to hear what Joe has to say about this, but here's what I'll tell you. That has been my experience. My experience has been, nobody gives a crap what you're paying to the runner-up or to the semifinalists. All I want to know is how much you're paying to the winner, and you let me worry about how we're going to whack that up, essentially, from there on out. I am Mr. Share the Wealth. I want to see people, if you go to the semifinals, I generally want to see you at least get the majority of your money back. Competitors that I've talked to in our series, if it was winner take all, they'd be perfectly okay with that.
I am shocked to hear that.
Now, and maybe Joe has a different feeling than I do, but that's what I've seen.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple different ways of looking at it. Like when I put on my 2 5-granders, I charged the entry fee was $150.
Okay.
Now, anybody would spend $150 to race for $5,000, right?
Right.
Okay. Our entry fee to buy a tech card at our trailer used to be $60.
Yep.
We raised it to $100, and we guaranteed $1,000 to win.
Right.
Okay. So if we didn't guarantee that money and we used our old structure and it went by car counts and whatever, say it would be $600 or $700 to the winner.
Yep.
Okay. Now, wouldn't you think your average guy would spend an extra $40 to race for $400 more?
Right.
You would think so, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Okay.
then 10-to-1 return.
Well, I can think of, I don't want to say a handful of guys. Oh yeah, but we lowered our membership fee also to be in the points.
Yep.
So there's a handful of racers that weren't racing with us anymore. And, I got a lot of friends and relatives in New York State and everything. And I says, well, what's with these guys? Well, why don't they want to race? Oh, they say it's too expensive. It's like, come on, an extra $40 to be guaranteed a Gino to win?
Right.
It's you don't have to be a mathematician to figure that deal out.
Yeah, it makes. I will say, from my perspective, it makes no sense at all. And it's been frustrating just because of that. That you get people that complain about the fact that, geez, it's too expensive to race. Then you got the guys that are like, hey man, let's make it 500 and race for some big money. And it's like, at some point I realize that you're going to reach the pain point of your majority of your racers out there. But when you look at what your total cost is to go racing for a weekend, and you talk about spending an extra $40 again to guarantee yourself now $1,000 to win, it's in the noise. It's totally in the noise.
Yeah. Well, when I used to race, this is the way I looked at it. I was doing it regardless because I loved it.
That's right.
The prize money, that was just a bonus at the end of the day. I just put that to the side because I was racing anyways.
Right.
But this is another thing with our deal. Our racers, we've got some racers that are so dedicated. I've got racers that started with us 13 years ago, are still racing with us, the same guys.
Yep.
And John Jablonski, John's missed our last few races. I don't know if he's losing interest or if he's slowing up or whatever, but he's raced with us since the first race. I believe Tom Coonley. There's
I know Mark Herbold's been competing with you for.
Yeah, Mark Herbold. I think Steve McCarrick.
Right.
It's just. It's kind of sad to see a couple guys fall by the wayside, but then, like I said, on this weekend, we had the young fella with the Mustang, and he actually, Char's husband Alex helped him get the stop on the car and everything, and then Robbie, he's a friend. I guess Robbie Becker does his engine work, and Robbie helps him with the car.
Yep.
His name's Mike, sorry. Mike went out on Saturday, put the car, his very first race, very first qualifying attempt, he put the car on the pole.
That's cool.
So it's like awesome, dude. Like I was,
It's funny because anytime I've seen, whatever it is that I've done, where I've done it for a long time, and we have somebody new get involved, I always hope for that person to have instant success because you're totally casting the line, right, and getting them on the hook instantly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
keep them enthusiastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you go out there and you get your brains bashed in for 8 weeks in a row, and you're like, you know what? Forget this. This is no fun at all. But you go out and have just a little bit of success. You get that taste, and you're like, something, right? Whatever
something.
It is.
And the thing is with our age of immediacy now, how everybody needs the instant reward.
Yeah, you know what?
Nobody wants to wait for that.
Right.
I remember when I started, the first year I joined the point series, I think was at Cayuga in 85, 86, and I was bracket racing the Green Barracuda that my son Ryan races in Super Stock.
Yep.
And at the time, I'm fiddling, I'm trying to make the car go faster and faster and changing stuff. Man, I went out 6 weekends before I won my first round of drag racing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
But that's not an apples to apples comparison anymore.
Well, and I have to say that that's the type of thing that, and I know we've talked about this on the show again. Racers are the biggest bunch of whiners, right? It's like, oh, the track stinks, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, look, if you can't get your car down the track, then work on your stuff. Work on your stuff so that you can get down the track. It's not the track is what the track is. If you can't get down it, that's not the track's fault. That's not my fault. That's your fault. But nobody wants to hear that. And, the NHRA pros are the same way, right? They expect to be able to go out to the track, put as much power to it as they possibly can, and that track better hold it. Otherwise, I'm going to whine and cry about it. And that is a 100% different mentality today than it was 30 years ago. Because, racing super gas 30 years ago, when you decided, all right, I'm going to jump in, more than likely you got your brains bashed in all year for the first season.
We got people in the circles that I'm in all the time, that be it circle track or any form of motorsport has this, where somebody shows up and they spend a whole lot of money and they're going to go out and win.
Right.
And they've got this thing in the shop and they've been a fan forever and they know everything there is to know and they've put their heart and soul into this thing and they show up at the track and a couple, 2-3 times they get the crap kicked out of them and it's everybody else's fault.
Right.
And...
well, and I know
let's take a microcosm of dirt modified racing, right?
Right.
And this year we had a handful of 10,000 win races on the Super Dirt Car Series. There's been a bunch of bigger money payout races with Brett Deo's series and stuff like that. But it was last year or year before, it was still 6,000 to win a touring series event, and that's the same thing that it paid at the turn of the millennium. Right. We're talking 15 years without much, and the weekly track stuff, forget about it.
Right.
Some of those sportsman guys, they're finally getting up close to, they're approaching 1,000 to win, and such like that on a fairly regular basis. But
you got to remember, we're not in this for the money.
But
you've made an investment on something that a lot of people are trying to figure out what they're going to do. When you start mapping out the extra this or the extra that, and you expand it over the course of the season, you said it at the beginning, they're broke. And if you start tacking that extra money and nickel and dime and you're not getting anything back, and you don't have sponsor support and stuff like that, then you might have gone broke a race earlier than you would have otherwise.
Yeah. But this is the thing about racing, and Joe's 100% right here. I mean, there are... I'm not going to say I could count them on one hand, but certainly less than 50 racers, sportsman racers, that do it for a living.
Yeah.
It might be less than 20.
Right.
It's certainly less than 50.
Everybody's got to go to work Monday.
Right. Mm-hmm. So when it gets right down to it, why are you doing this? Yeah, it's nice to win money, but like Joe said, that's the bonus, right? You got to be doing this because you love doing it. And I've come to the conclusion this year, and maybe it's just me. Joe's a little bit older than me, and maybe that's why nobody likes Joe, because he's been the grumpy old man for a while. Well, I'm just entering into the grumpy old man.
you're free grumpy.
Yeah, and this year in particular, I'm like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I don't care if people show up or not. I'm here to race. I'm going to race whether it's $1 to win, nothing to win. I don't really care. I'm here to race. And I don't want to hear about, oh, geez, maybe I'll show up. And, well, if you did this, I would show up. It's like, you know what? You want to race? Race. If you don't. I don't care. And again, that's my grumpy old man kind of syndrome coming out. And that, I think, and now granted, again, Would we all love to race for $10,000 to win at your local bracket race every single week? Yeah, we would. But
I don't think that the way that the landscape is right now, and probably people are going to be scratching their head when I say this, I don't think throwing a pile of money at it is going to fix it. If it is,
I don't think so either.
If it is, it's going to be a temporary fix. You're going to be right back in the same spot because now
I would bet money that
it won't.
Let's forget Western Super Out Association. Let's go with a series like TNT. I know he did. Let's go with a series like TNT that still gets a respectable turnout at every race. My guess is if TNT increased their amount to win from 1,000 to 2,000, might get one more car.
Is the emphasis not so much on following a series anymore, or even insofar as running weekly as the standalone shows, the big by themselves event, the special attraction one-off events, because those seem to draw like crazy.
Well, I'm gonna tell you two things. When I did my 2 $5-granders, we did it. IHRA was still around, and they were having their I don't know what they call that, pro-am race.
Pro-am, right? Yeah. Yep.
And we did our 5-grander on the Friday night because I figure there's cars coming. Mm-hmm. There's going to be even more cars coming when they got the opportunity to run our deal for $5,000.
Yep, captive audience.
We broadcasted it live on Motor Mania,
right.
and I think that's what made those 2 races a success, is because it gave the guys the opportunity to have 3 kicks at the can instead of just the Pro-Am deal for less than a third of the money they paid compared to what I paid. But I think this is what I feel is the major problem with the car counts now in every series is Jason Oldfield. Racing was bred into him.
Yeah.
My 2 boys that race, they've been around it their whole lives. Mm-hmm. The Haleen boy, the Bauer boy, the Maduri boy. How many new guys do you see that all of a sudden that don't have the background or the history behind them decide that they want to build a car and come racing? I don't see any of them.
You're losing cars. You are losing cars faster than you gain them. You're losing drivers faster than you gain them.
Right. Yes.
And that is regardless of what motor and how many wheels. You are losing racers faster than you're gaining them. And it comes back to that whole, if I don't win the first 2 times out, forget this. I'm going back to X, whatever. And
your Xbox. But
and I will say, like in Super Gas, we've looked specifically at our series, and we have had a bunch of guys that have quit, sold their stuff, and when I say quit or sold their stuff, I'm not saying that they got demoralized and quit, but it was like, yeah, you know what? I'm 70 years old. Jerry Stoutenberg. I'm going to use Jerry Stoutenberg as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry raced until he was, 75 years old and said, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm tired and I can't really do this anymore by myself, and it's just time for me to retire. And there's one less Super Gas racer now. And to your point, Joe, there was no young kid that just happened to show up out of nowhere that was like, hey, you know what? I want to race Super Gas now. Anyone that raced Super Gas that is a young kid like that, generally what you end up having is, let's call it like the Tyler Helene of the world. Old man steps aside, young kid hops in the seat of the same car, and all you've done, you haven't gained anything. You've just kept yourself from losing one car.
You got a net gain of 0.
You have a net gain of 0, exactly. But actually new people where you're like, who the heck are you? I've never heard of you before.
And drag racing's in a weird spot with so many different divisions. You've seen divisions come and go, and you've seen the ebb and flow of that stuff. If you look at some of the more basic divisions where you might see people break in more readily, the street stock realm of things, and there's a ladder there just like there is at any dirt track with the 4-cylinders and the street stocks. That division always self-resets. because we want more, we want more, we want more. It's too expensive. We need this back again. We go back to stock. We want more, we want more, we want more, we want more. This is too expensive. This is stupid. We need to go back to where it was. And we go back to stock.
Joe, did you ever race Pro Modified? I know you went Top Sportsman racing. Did you ever race Pro Modified?
Yeah. Actually, I won the Canadian Pro Modified Series in '06, and then prior to that, I finished in the top 8 3 times. I've been very fortunate during my racing career that I was always able to win at least 1 or 2 big races a year.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, I raced against guys that had millions of dollars. So
I know.
I was very fortunate, and then I even used to go. We used to go to the Halloween Classic at Norwalk.
Yeah.
Run the Top Gun or Top Sportsman deal, and then they'd have Audi sponsored. It was the Frantic Four, where the 4 fastest cars on the property would run off on the Saturday night. And not only am I the only person that's ever won it 3 times, I won it 3 consecutive years in a row.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. And then in '98, when I had my LeBaron, that was Larry O'Brien's old Pro Stock.
Okay.
And I had a blower motor in it. So in '98, I won the Pro Comp Championship at Cayuga, which I was competing against, dragsters, automatics, delay boxes. I had a blower and a clutch, wick it up, put it in the beams, and that year I think I finished number 8 in the Pro Mod deal as well. So I was very fortunate. We had a good time.
Yeah, I would say we've been on the air an hour already, which, typical great conversation. The time flies by. I'd love to have you on the show again, because we really haven't talked about your racing career at all, which is long and storied.
Right.
I'd only bore you. I'd only bore you.
No, not going to bore us at all. Not going to bore us at all. But the reason I asked about whether or not you'd ever race Pro Modified was because of the fact that everybody wants to race that style of racing. First one to the finish line wins. But the problem is that the cost just gets out of control.
Yeah. I don't want to say I don't know if I could do it now or not financially, but I definitely wouldn't want to make myself broke before I retire.
Right.
So, but anyways, I just want to give a shout out.
Absolutely.
My son Pat, he is on Team Cayuga this weekend, so they're up. And where the heck are they this weekend running the bracket finals?
They are at Pittsburgh.
No, they're not at Pittsburgh. They're at 90 past Schenectady. What track is that out there?
Oh, Esta?
No. Come on, big NHRA track.
Lebanon Valley?
Lebanon Valley. So the whole Cayuga team is up there. So I want to wish my son some luck. I hope it'd be nice to see some brass come back to Canada from Team Cayuga. And my son Ryan, he's on his way up to Columbus right now for that NHRA deal. So hopefully he has a good weekend as well.
I didn't realize that they were running the NHRA bracket finals this weekend.
Yeah, right now. They're all up there right now.
That is crazy. Why would they run that event the same weekend as the Columbus Sports National event?
Well, I don't think there's anybody in comp, stock, super stock that's bracket racing at their local track that would go to a bracket final. But, it's like right now, while we're talking, I'm watching the shakedown from Virginia.
Yeah.
There's another big race somewhere. There's the bracket final. There's the Columbus deal. There's a lot of racing on this weekend, and it looks like everybody's going to have fantastic weather. So.
Well, I guess that's a good news. Is that there's good weather and lots of opportunities for you to go and go race someplace.
Once the sun goes down at 7:30, we have good weather.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm gonna let you go, and I appreciate you having us on tonight.
Hey,
for sure.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Joe. Really appreciate you coming on. And again, we're going to have you on certainly again in the future, so we can talk more about your racing.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Hey,
thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe Boniferro with TNT. wrapping up their season at Empire over the weekend and got into some of the theories of drag racing and where things at. Where I was going with that reset is with that type of division that can do its own self reset. There's sustainability there because it eventually will come back around, and you'll be able to get a new influx of drivers, and it will continue to feed itself, although it's fighting itself.
Right. Yours
is unique, though. We've talked before about how particular divisions are the driver pool is just going away, and it's going away, and it's whittling down. So, I mean, yours is a little bit different situation. Like you were hitting on, maybe people just don't want to run .90 racing anymore.
Well, and throttle stop racing, let's call it that, right? I mean, I get that, and people not wanting to run a throttle stop, it's like I don't get it. Why would I? Especially the younger guys, why would I make my car fast just to slow it down again? That takes the fun out of it. So, yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, yeah, for me personally, it's like, what's the real thrill of the .90 style racing? It's not the throttle stop itself. I love the pro tree, heads up, everyone's running the same index type of thing. And yeah, maybe
races are decided by 10,000ths of a second.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, most bracket races are.
Right.
But yeah, maybe the solution or the answer is to go to one of the no electronics classes where you do the same style of thing. I don't know. Like I said, I don't.
If you did, your phone would be ringing.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I mean, again, it's for me. Again, I really like the pro tree heads up type of thing, and that's what I was raised on. Yeah, what's going to happen? I mean, I really do, and again, maybe we've talked about this on the show. 20 years from now, I really don't believe that there's going to be a class called Super Gas.
Right.
Maybe there might be Super Comp still, because it's still pretty popular with the dragsters. So when you go get yourself a dragster, I can bracket race that thing, and I can race Super Comp with it. So that's a little bit more popular than Super Gas. But yeah, 20 years from now, I don't expect Super Gas will be around any longer.
Right.
And again, you look at the average age of the guy competing in Super Gas. I mean, it's not just Super Gas, really. I mean, it's Super Gas, it's Super Street, Super Comp, Super Stock, and Stock. Those 5 main NHRA sportsman classes. It's old. It's really old.
Right.
Like, I'm one of the younger guys old.
Mm-hmm. I know. We've talked about that.
And it shouldn't be like that.
It shouldn't, but that's the cost of the creation. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise, these are the people that are these are the guys that have been in it forever. The new guys that are coming in don't have that marriage, that sense of loyalty to the sport for theoretically.
Right.
I'm speaking in general terms. When you look at a bell curve, there's going to be extremes on everything. There's going to be the middle ground. So before the pitchforks and torches come out.
Yeah.
But
young kids. And I'm going to say young kids. So Josh Mills, who runs out at Empire, I think he runs with the Street Outlaws. I mean, he's run no prep style stuff. I mean, young kid. I mean, his car's fast. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's gone 470s with it, maybe even a little bit quicker. I mean, it's a fast car. Here's a kid that went out to the drag races. His dad used to bracket race, 10, 15, 20 years ago. That wasn't of a lot of interest to him. Throttle stop racing, he probably doesn't understand at all because his dad didn't do that. And it was like, well, I'm not going to do that. So it's like, I'm going to build a car. What am I going to do? It's like, oh, yeah, the street outlaw style stuff, that's the stuff that's really interesting to me. Now, he's a little bit of a anomaly, I guess, let's call it, from just your standard young kid off the street, in that he had his dad to help him. And I will say that Josh also is a good fabricator, so went to work for Randy Jewell and learned how to fabricate and build a lot of the stuff on his own too, right?
Sure.
But even so, you're doing all this work on your own. The parts still cost a lot of money. And he was lucky enough to have his dad there to kind of get him started and going. And it's like,
well, you're talking about all the age of the people, the guys that are racing, right? You said it's an old population.
Oh yeah.
How many of them are engineer types?
Not many.
From the corporate side of things.
Not many.
That have put together major retirements. Right?
80% of the guys out there are mechanics. They're mechanics. Yeah, for sure. And maybe 80% is an exaggeration, but I'll say 50% of the guys are probably mechanics. And some of them are car mechanics, some of them are diesel mechanics, some of them are fork truck mechanics, right? But they're all guys that are generally, for the most part, more the blue collar guys that aren't afraid to get their hands dirty and work on their own stuff. But even if you had a kid that is willing to do that, you still have to have the capital to be able to go out. All right, I just broke my cylinder heads. I need to go buy another set. Right. Oh, geez, I only make $8 an hour at McDonald's. I can't exactly go do that, right? You
just sounded like a really old man right there.
Because minimum wage hasn't been $8 in like 20 years or something. But I mean, I think you get my point. That I mean, to build a super gas car, it's not an inexpensive endeavor to build a super gas car. It's not ridiculously expensive, but you're not going to build a super gas car for $5,000. I mean, could you do it for $10,000? I suppose you might be able to find I mean, again, if you could do all the work yourself, you found yourself a junk body, everything else, you could probably build a super gas car for $10,000. Not in the, let's call it the picture of what a super gas car, what most people see as a super gas car today. But you could probably run 990 with it.
Yeah, you're not building a poster child.
No,
you're building a car.
Right. You're building a car that could run 990.
Right.
To get to the point where you say, all right, I have a standard super gas roadster like most people have, you can't build that car for under $35,000. Doing all the work yourself.
Doing all the
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think we're gonna solve this in the next 15 minutes.
No, probably not. Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, I look forward to getting Joe on again. I think that's going to be a fun conversation because we'll be able to focus just on what he's done.
Yeah, he's a super.
You're talking about that stuff. Even he said, I was fortunate enough to win 2 or 3 big races every year, and it's like.
He was always super competitive. The LeBaron is
that's helpful.
The car that I remember of his. Yeah. If I saw pictures, I'm sure I would recognize other cars, but the LeBaron is the car for me that really sticks out. That when I think of Joe's racing career, the LeBaron is the car that I think of. Yeah. But the Barracuda, crashed that car actually a few weeks ago. I think it was at Cayuga. I'm not 100% sure that if it was at Cayuga or not. But yeah, crashed that car. I wanted to didn't get a chance to ask him, but I wanted to ask him, how what's the condition of the car? How bad is it? And I'm assuming the fact that he mentioned it means that it didn't go on a record to the junkyard. So I don't know anything about really the crash itself. All I know is that they had a crash.
Something happened.
Yeah, something happened. But. Be interesting to hear certainly more about that too.
Something else to put a pin in, and we can revisit it when.
Absolutely.
We get back to it.
And he's a great guy. He's been a real big supporter. Like I said, I mean, obviously he was a competitor, but he's been a huge supporter of the sport, particularly locally. Helping TNT and a whole bunch of other local series and tracks as well. So I mean, it's nice that the guy gives back too.
Right on.
For
sure. Well. That's all stuff that we're going to get to when we have him back on. Whenever that might be, it's something that's it's going to happen. It's no doubt going to happen. I mean, that was a great conversation we had for an hour plus here. That's going to do it for us here. Episode number 69 is in the books. Congratulations to all the winners from Empire this weekend and on a successful season for the TNT Super Series this year. That's going to wrap it up. We'll see you next time here from the North Park Building in Academy Square. See you then. This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.